With the word Norfolk. Let's take you back to our top story this morning. Some interesting thoughts coming in from you on this one as well. After years of hold-ups and legal challenges, work is finally going to begin on 5 A47 improvement schemes. It represents over £250 million in investment in the local road network. You'll have a chance to speak to the team behind the plans at 3 public events in Norfolk this week. The first one is today at Norwich Camping and Leisure in Blowfield, then Acle Co-op on Thursday and the Castle Quarter in Norwich on Friday. The work itself is due to begin very shortly, as soon as next month. The man behind the legal challenge to the scheme is campaigner Andrew Boswell, and he joins us now. Andrew, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Chris.
Work on some of these schemes begins next month. So do you now accept that these improvements will happen?
No, absolutely don't. And actually what's happening at the moment is posturing by National Highways. Yes, there's some things they can do, like they can do the archaeological work and, possible preparation for the scheme. They can install compounds for the construction, but all of those are actually outside the scope of the legal development consent order, which is what the legal cases are about. And I fully intend to appeal the judgment.
So you haven't given up hope, actually, of putting the brakes on these developments?
No, absolutely haven't, because it's quite clear that if you have 3 schemes all coming together like this, and the Norwich Western Link, actually, but you're going to cause increased carbon pollution. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Everybody agrees about that. And the judge misunderstood the case law about how cumulative assessment works out in the relative legal framework. And my lawyers advise me we've got a very good chance of turning this over at the Court of Appeal. In fact, there's actually 2 higher courts. There's the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court. And, we will go as far as we need to turn over this case. But in a climate emergency, this is a very important case, that how you deal with carbon pollution is, properly dealt with. We've only got to look at the apocalyptic events in Rhodes last weekend. Totally tragic for those many holidaymakers trapped in terrible scenes. And that is just a sign of what's coming. And it's absolutely ridiculous, that a court makes a decision like this in that situation. So, I will go on until we get the right decision on this, because it should be determined correctly, and it can be, and I believe it will be, by the Court of Appeal or possibly even the Supreme Court if necessary.
The climate change argument, given what's going on in places like Rhodes at the moment, is a strong one. But people dying in car crashes and road crashes, that is tragic as well. And that there is a strong belief, we've spoken to people who live near the North Birmingham stretch, which is due to be dualled, that if that happens, we will have fewer people dying in car crashes.
Well, that is a belief, actually, as you say. The common causes of road accidents, and this is from the AA and insurance companies, are carelessness, dangerous driving and bad driving habits. If you go into that, drill into that, it's things like speeding, being distracted, eating at the wheel, mobile phones. Thankfully, we are seeing a lot less mobile phone use and so on, but I think some still goes on. Reckless driving, like tailgating, not looking out for bikes and pedestrians, being drowsy and tired when driving, obviously under the influence of drugs and alcohol, not responding to poor weather conditions. What the AA don't list is building more roads will help prevent the common causes of road accidents.
But it stands to reason on a dual carriageway, you then have less chance of a head-on collision. And I know in the particular part of Norfolk we've talked about, yes, that is what happens because people try to overtake and you get head-on collisions. That won't happen on at least much less likely to happen on a dual carriageway.
What we need to do is tackle the dangerous spots, what we used to call accident black spots. Few decades ago, and the way to do that is actually the way the government want to go in the longer term on roads investment, which is to have small pots of money dedicated to solving local problems. So pots of money up to 25 million. What we need to do in Norfolk is focus on those areas where there are accident black spots potentially. Now, actually, the road scheme, the A47 Blowfield scheme, actually makes the situation for the farming vehicles worse. Those farming tractors coming out, that there already is an accident black spot there. What the scheme does is actually to speed the traffic up there, and that was an issue at the public examination, actually. So that is, for example, a black spot which should be just addressed by putting in the funds now. I also think that the Berries Lane crossroads out near Honningham should have something like 25 million quid spent on it now just to sort that issue out. It's a very, very difficult junction to come out of that. I know that. I've tried to come out of there on occasions. It is very difficult. There's no doubt about it. It just needs to be solved. The other thing is investment in speed cameras and enforcement. And, there's been discussion about the Acle Strait recently. Well, that isn't going to be built anyway, even if the schemes go ahead at Blowfield and so on. That won't go ahead for another 10 years. What you need to do is solve the problem now, and that is putting speed cameras on and enforcing it. And on the Acle Strait, for example, average speed cameras. All these solutions exist, but they're not being used. Instead, the solution put forward is just build more and more big roads. It's not the solution, and it's not the cause of it doesn't remove the cause of the accidents.
We spoke to Norfolk County Council earlier this week, actually, about the millions of pounds they're investing in local bus services, trying to get more people on public transport. So in terms of making things more environmentally friendly, taking cars off the road, they are doing things to that degree, aren't they, the County Council?
Well, yeah, very, very belatedly. They've let the park and ride system run down. And, it's only due to pressure from opposition councillors. I believe the POSIC Park and Ride is now about to, will be opening up again. But, they should never have let them ground down the way they did. So, unfortunately, Norfolk County Council always, come to the table on doing things for public transport very, very late in the day. But, it's good to hear they're doing something. But we just need much, much more of it. And a complete change of priority at Norfolk County Council, to be honest.
Just to finish with, you've talked about appealing this ruling. You've talked about going to the highest court in the land. How long will that process take? And are you confident that the work won't start until you've gone through this process?
Well, I don't know how long it will take. That's the court process works in a bit of a sort of weird and wonderful way. But it will take considerable time to know what the Court of Appeal is going to do. And for the moment, yes, my understanding is once we've applied for permission to the Court of Appeal, the real work can't start. As I said at the beginning, yes, they can put up sort of posturing things like, or do posturing things like the archaeological work or the building compounds, but they can't actually start the real work, is my understanding.
We'll talk about this again, I'm sure. Thanks for joining us this morning. Campaigner Andrew Boswell with his take on whether or not work on the A47 is about to start, because as far as he's concerned, he's appealing against some of the recent legal decisions, or is planning to appeal, and is confident that what you might refer to, or what he referred to as the proper roadworks, will not start until that appeal has been heard. Your thoughts?